Part 7. Within the walls. The garage exhaled the scent of stalled intentions. Not the clean bite of sawdust or gasoline, but a muted dampness, like old paper steeped in twilight and the slow decay of promises. Arthur traced the workbench's surface, a slick film of dust adhering to his skin, a tactile weight of regret. He'd sought proof, a telltale tool mark, an arrangement of discarded objects, something to tether the creeping unease. Instead, he found only the accumulated residue of lives lived around this space, rarely within it. The chipped porcelain doll's head stared back, its painted smile a brittle curve against the gloom. For hours he'd been excavating the garage's contents, driven by a restlessness less like investigation than unearthing. Each item disinterred was a small headstone marking a past decision. Faded Christmas ornaments, a barely used croquet set, boxes overflowing with Leo's childhood artwork. Each whispered of beginnings, slowly abandoned to the quiet entropy of time. The figure he'd glimpsed wasn't merely in the garage. He realized it was of it, born from their collective hesitations, coalesced from years of deferred living. Grandma Vivian's stories returned, sharper now. The loggers hadn't simply mocked the lake spirit. They disregarded its rhythm, tearing into the land with an arrogance born of dominion. They treated the forest as resource, forgetting its memory resided within the grain of each tree. Now this spirit demanded recognition not through grand offerings, but through acknowledging the small compromises that constituted a life. It wasn't about what haunted them, Arthur mused, but why? Why this garage? Why now? What subtle disregard had summoned this presence? He found it tucked beneath a faded quilt, a roughly carved wooden jester's head, no bigger than his palm. It wasn't beautifully crafted, clumsy even, but it radiated a peculiar warmth that spread through his fingers. Holding it felt like grasping a slow heartbeat, steady and insistent. Unlike the cold stone gestures scattered throughout the house, this one breathed with something ancient and knowing. As he held it, a premonition washed over him. Leo, asleep upstairs, vulnerable. He saw a shadowy hand reaching for him, not with malice, but with a quiet insistence. A hand both familiar and indistinct, as if lifted from an old photograph. The hand seemed to trace Leo's jawline, then his chest, as if confirming his existence. Eleanor had dismissed his growing anxiety as academic overthinking, another symptom of his impending tenure review. "You're looking for patterns where there are only drafts," she'd said last night, her voice weary with legal briefs and her own unspoken anxieties pressing against her ribs. But Arthur knew better now. This wasn't intellectual curiosity. It was survival. Their family felt fragile lately, like a carefully constructed sandcastle facing an incoming tide, and this garage was revealing the fault lines running beneath their feet. Clara had been unusually quiet today, sketching furiously in her notebook. Her drawings were becoming increasingly populated with gestures, mournful figures with elongated limbs and eyes that pierced your gaze. They weren't menacing exactly. They were observant, witnesses to some private tragedy unfolding within their own hearts. She didn't speak much about her drawings anymore, just offered them up with a shy smile as if presenting evidence in an unspoken trial. Arthur examined one closely, a jester standing at Leo's bedside, watching him sleep, mirroring the feeling in his own gut. Leo remained largely oblivious or pretended to be, disappearing further into the vibrant chaos of VR whenever possible. His digital world offered control, a curated reality free from shadows and unsettling bangs. But Arthur suspected even that sanctuary was beginning to fray at its edges. He'd noticed Leo flinching more frequently while gaming, glancing nervously over his shoulder as if expecting something to emerge from the virtual landscape, sometimes pausing mid-battle, eyes wide with unarticulated dread. He wasn't just escaping into Neo Tokyo. He was searching for something within it, some reassurance that solidity still existed. The air in the garage thickened with the weight of unacknowledged histories. Arthur felt enveloped by choices made and avoided, by paths taken and those winding into obscurity. It felt like standing within the labyrinthine corridors of their collective subconscious, each object resonating with lost possibilities. He ran his fingers over the carved jester's head again. It pulsed faintly in his hand, echoing the slow thump of his own heart. The spirit wasn't necessarily angry. It was merely present, a silent judge observing their careful choreography of self-deception. The garage wasn't just storage space. It was an archive, holding not just things they owned, but pieces of themselves they had long since forgotten or deliberately shelved, fragments of ambition, hopes abandoned, dreams deferred. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the lawn. Arthur straightened up, feeling strangely exhausted yet invigorated. He hadn't solved anything tangible, but he had shifted his focus from seeking external explanations to acknowledging internal fractures. The haunting wasn't simply happening to them. It was happening within them, reflecting back their own uncertainties and regrets like distorted images in a funhouse mirror. The gesture wasn't laughing at them. It was witnessing their struggle, observing their beautifully flawed attempts to navigate existence amidst loss and longing, and perhaps acknowledging that self-deception wasn't always a weakness, but sometimes a necessary balm against existential dread.